Alright everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues episode 129, Pesticides, Dairies, and Ben & Jerry's. Ben & Jerry's apparently 88% or so of the milk that goes into making their product is not from organic dairies. Whether it's coming from Vermont or not makes no difference. The problem is this, a lot of those things have glyphosates in them. Specifically, you've got a farm and dairy. And they're spraying things off. You've got Roundup food crops fed to the cows. Those are tainted with glyphosates, and it's been found in all of these dairy products. It is a poisonous substance that has made its way into our food chain. Now, let me say something here on the topic of like pesticides and stuff. I am more worried about the ecological effects of minute quantities of this material fucking up the pollinators or something than I am specifically humans ingesting the relatively small amount that they're typically going to get. That being said, though, people should have a right to know, hey, yeah, this has been treated, yeah, some agency has found a certain level of glyphosates, here's what that means. They need to be more forthcoming, because a lot of people have this mythological idea in their minds that these pesticides are safe, like that in the old days pesticides were terrible. Oh, we sprayed that DDT and it caused birth defects and did this and that and it was terrible. But the new pesticides that we spray, those are totally fine. I don't believe that. I think that anything that is specifically deployed to kill life forms is at least possibly hazardous to the human population, as well as to beneficial insects, amphibians, things of that nature. On this, I have to really side more with the environmentalist fronts, like the left, on these issues. I do not believe that deploying pesticide is necessary. All you have to do is companion planting. Smaller farmers, there's no reason they shouldn't be organic. They can charge more for their product anyway, and it shouldn't even, by the way, be that way. You see these huge monocultural stands. Rotate your crops. You stop using treated feed. It's not necessary. It's the extra amount that you're spending to supposedly reduce like pests on crops could be offset just by companion planting in a lot of cases. People were doing that for thousands and thousands of years. Yes, you're always going to have localized famines. You're more likely to have a localized downturn in your crops or livestock or something because of weather patterns than you are because of a locust swarm. It's just statistically the case. Usually what we find is that bad farming practices leads to problems down the road. That's often what happens, like in Africa. When we send food aid, the local farmers suffer, things go fallow, maybe they have a dust bowl. If they switch to mechanization, and you have a famine, you have some sort of problem. There's no real reason why we shouldn't know what products have these materials in them. At the very least, it's not an issue of consumer safety, it's an issue of people have a right to know specifically what they're consuming. That's my belief about it anyway. Right now, nobody really wants to label anything. And there's no reason why people shouldn't be able to know. That's simply my point as far as pesticide goes. Now then, as far as the topic of dairies in general, dairies already have it rough. I can understand why they wouldn't want to spend a few extra cents per pound or something for feed that is organic and not treated when they can get something slightly cheaper, but that's a function of the here in Vermont anyway, it's a function of the anti-business mentality of the state. No, taxes are going to be sky high, and on paper, you have a lot of land, a lot of assets, so we're going to tax you more. Your property taxes will be higher because you have so many, acres. Fuck you, basically. They tried to, I think, sue dairy farmers when they were price fixing. They were trying to raise the price a little bit years ago. And I can remember it was a big thing. And they were like, well, you can't do this. It's unlawful for you to actually set your own prices, basically. I wonder why dairies have a hard time. There were thousands of dairies in Vermont a few decades ago. Now there are not that many. Most of them are very small anyway. The number of dairies in this state has shrunk by a significant proportion. We're not the only state, certainly in this region of the country, that's had that problem. So, I mean, I wouldn't put any onus on the dairy farmers themselves, because they're looking out for number one, which is, hey, I operate on a shoestring budget. That extra 2 cents per pound adds up to, thousands of dollars. I just don't have that. You know, I barely make a profit. Some of these people, I don't even know how they stay in business, to tell the truth. But we need to do something about pesticides. I can understand, like, Ben & Jerry's labels itself hippie-trippy. Oh, you know, granola crunching hippie stuff, you know, weed, man, and liberal politics. And at the same time, they're using this treated material. And don't even readily want people to acknowledge, yeah, there might be health complications through bioaccumulation when all of the beef, the dairy products, most of the produce at your grocery store, unless it's specifically organic, yeah, all that stuff has the same kinds of chemicals in it. Everything that you eat is at least a little bit tainted with something that is specifically used to kill life forms. But don't worry, it won't hurt you at all. And don't worry about the crops that are bred so you don't have to spray them with pesticides. They actually produce their own pesticides. Don't worry about them either. That's perfectly normal, and it couldn't possibly cause health complications. Meanwhile, I think 10, 20 years from now, when, you know, people get more and more antsy about these substances, they're going to find out, yeah, indeed, some of them, they do cause significant health issues. So there's a little bit about Ben & Jerry's. It may look hippie-trippy. It may brand itself as hippie-trippy, but it's no longer the hippie-trippy company that it once was. It's not on the leading edge of dairy progressivism, so to speak. That's about all. Peace out.